Today, we're looking at a green ink by Herbin Vert Reseda. Hi, I'm Adam, and I'm an ink guy. I get inks, test them, and share the results with you. Now, there's timestamps down below so that you can skip around, but if you got the time, I'd appreciate you checking out the entire video. Also, if you're interested, you can follow me on Instagram, and if you're new here, I would invite you to subscribe. To make sure I have a range of experience with this ink, I do the writing samples. I then put the ink into this Lamy All-Star with a broad nib, wrote with it for a day, and used it to take the notes for this video. In order to have a standardization in my writing samples, I always use Clairfontaine, Tomoe River, and Rhodia paper, although I do use more papers, and those will show up later in the video. Now, let's look at the writing sample. I picked this ink up in sample form, so it came in a vial like this. And to keep my writing samples consistent, I use a Jinhao 159 with a Goulet 1.1 stub, a Jinhao X 450 with a Goulet medium, and a Jinhao X 750 with a Goulet extra fine. Let's take a look at the Clairfontaine. No bleeding, no ghosting. The 1.1 has no feather spread, halo sheen, and no shade. The extra fine is a lot lighter than the stub with no feather spread, halo sheen, small spots of shading, but that's about it. 11 seconds to dry. Medium is about the same tone as the extra fine with no feather spread, halo sheen, a few more spots of shading than we got with the extra fine. 14 seconds to dry. Now the scrubby of the extra fine is not showing any color variation. We got very little. Medium shows more, and we did get more. Tomoe River. No bleeding, very minor Tomoe River ghosting. The 1.1 has no feather spread, halo sheen, or shade. The extra fine is lighter than the stub with no feather spread, halo sheen, no shade, 16 seconds to dry. Medium is the same tone as the extra fine with no feather spread, halo sheen, or shade, and 21 seconds to dry. The scrubby for both are showing no color variation, because we don't get it here. And Rhodia, with no bleeding, no ghosting. The 1.1 has no feather spread, halo sheen, or shade. The extra fine is quite a bit lighter than the stub, with no feather spread, halo sheen. There are some spots of shading throughout the writing. 12 seconds to dry. Medium is about the same tone as the extra fine, with no feather spread, halo sheen, still seeing spots of shading throughout this writing. 16 seconds to dry. Scrubby for both do show color variation, and we are getting it in the writing itself. I agree with Vita that we learn a lot when we do multiple chromatographies. The one on the left is done the way it's supposed to be done. I put a line of ink down and immediately put it into water for 10 to 15 seconds. And we see this ink flies away from the water. It's pushed entirely up. It's also a very light green, even as it's gathering at the top. Now there's no other mixing to make this particular green. Now the one on the right I let dry for 10 minutes before I dunk it into water. And it just didn't travel as far, but other than that, we're not seeing any difference, so I don't expect any kind of resistance here. Resistance tests are done to see how well this ink can be expected to perform on the page, and more importantly, how hard it may be to clean from your pen. I let the smear dry for 3 days before testing it. Looking at the highlighter, I would not use this in a note-taking situation if I wanted to go back and highlight, because look at how much is blown out. It would be unreadable and you'll lose your notes. Now that makes perfect sense when you think about the chromatography and what happens here with the water. Water in 30 seconds is completely reactivating and lifting it off the paper. Pen flush does the same as water, and 1/3 bleach solution also completely removes it from the paper. I test viscosity or flow with a tilt test that I'll link down below in a description or in a card. Now for the inks I've tested, I have found an average viscosity of 2.5, with the realm of normal being from 2.1 to 2.9. Herbin Vert Reseda has a viscosity of 1.7, making this a wet ink. To find my average dry times, I use my writing samples done on Clairfontaine, Tomoe River, and Rhodia paper. I average all of those. Now, for the inks I've tested, I found an average dry time of 17 seconds, with the realm of normal being from 13 to 21 seconds. Herbin Vert Reseda has an average dry time of 15 seconds, making it normal. Instead of finding inks that look like Herbin Vert Reseda, I would prefer to find an ink that complements its color on the page. I decided to go with a nice black, and I chose Krishna's Empty. The second writing sample is done on yellow Rhodia, P. Berger, and white lines paper. Here we're looking at the yellow Rhodia paper. We're not trying to look at performance difference, more tone change of what goes on. Now, it is a much more vibrant green on the yellow backdrop than it is the white backdrop of the white paper. So it's interesting, not that you would use it in a professional environment, just how the yellow does affect this ink. P. Berger, it's a student grade French ruled paper. There is bleeding on the stub. There is a little bit on the extra fine, not as much on the medium. That means that our show-throughs largely gone in that same way. Now, none of them touch the page underneath, but depending, you might not be able to use the back of the page. 1.1 has feathering, tiny feathering, especially in the Herbin part. It's tiny feathering all over, not the kind that would really be an issue in reading it back, but just to be aware that it's there. There's no spread, no halo, no sheen, no shade. Extra fine is about the same tone as the stub, with no feather spread, halo sheen, no shade, 3 seconds to dry. Medium is the same tone as the extra fine, with no feather spread, halo sheen, no shade, 4 seconds to dry. Scrubby for both show us no color variation, and we don't get any. And white lines paper. So again, we do get bleed spots that occur with the stub and with the extra fine, not with the medium. It causes much more show through with the extra fine and the stub. Although it's not horrible with the extra fine, it is there. Doesn't touch the back of the page. Just might not be able to use the back. The 1.1 has no feather spread, halo sheen, or shade. The extra fine is a little lighter than the stub with no feather spread, halo sheen, no shade, and 3 seconds to dry. Medium is a little lighter than the extra fine with no feather spread, halo sheen, no shade, and 5 seconds to dry. Now the scrubby of the extra fine is showing some color variation, although we didn't get it. The medium shows some, and we didn't get it there either. And that's all that I have for the writing sample. So what do I think of Herbin Vert Reseda? This is a very nice performing, very well behaved ink from Herbin, which is what you expect from that brand. Now, as an ink in tone, it does offer shading, but not as much shading as I would prefer to get from green inks. So what nib and pen are going to give the best writing experience with this ink? It does give a darker version from a very wet pen, but I definitely prefer the way it looks in shades from a medium flow fine nib. If you've enjoyed this video, remember, I like thumbs up, you like thumbs up, everybody likes thumbs up. Unless you didn't like it, then give me the thumbs down. Both are good. Thanks for watching.